Let's talk now to Anand Menon, Professor of European Politics at King's College London and Director of the think tank UK in Changing Europe. Anand, good to see you on the programme. And that seems like a pretty clear-cut commitment from the UK to Ukraine, doesn't it? Could anything change that?
Well, as your two panelists said, the crucial thing is going to be to see what happens when Trump takes office. And if it really is the case that the US are willing to give no more assistance at all to Ukraine, then that poses a real challenge to European states as to whether they're willing and able to step into the breach, because that will require significant more money and significant more weapons coming from Europe to Ukraine. And I'm not convinced that Europeans are fully committed to that. Some are more than others, but we won't really know, I don't think, until they're confronted with that stark dilemma.
Yeah, and if the UK wants a good economic and security relationship with the US under the second Trump administration, that begs the question, though, what happens if the US takes a very different position on Ukraine, as you've mentioned, and European leaders find that difficult? Does the UK think, well, we have to go our own way, a different way from America on Ukraine, but actually we'd like to kind of be closer to America on economic matters? I mean, can those two things happen?
I mean, those two things could happen. I think the real problem that a Trump presidency poses for the United Kingdom is it puts us in the position of doing what we've never liked doing, which is choosing between Europe and America. So if, say, the Trump administration said to our government, we can make a deal whereby you are not subject to these 10 or 20% tariffs on imports that we're planning to levy on all exporters to the United States. In return, we want you to open your market to some of our agricultural products. And that causes problems for the Starmer government in two ways. One, I don't think there's great support amongst public opinion here for that kind of deal. And two, it would rule out a key plank of his reset with the European Union, which is a veterinary agreement. So there is the potential that a Trump administration, when it comes to the relationship between us, the Europeans, and the United States, imposes some really tricky choices on our government.
Yeah, and one of those potential choices could be a move closer to the EU, which politically may be trickier in terms of the optics for this Labour government. I mean, how likely do you think that option is?
Well, I think there are two things to be said. One is that our military and our intelligence services really, really value the special relationship with the United States. And I imagine they'll be arguing that that should be maintained regardless of the implications, in a way, for our economic ties with the European Union. So there are some people for whom that security relationship is absolutely top of the list of priorities. The other thing to be said, of course, is for all Keir Starmer's talk of a reset with the European Union, negotiations haven't started yet, and we don't really know how far those talks will go. What we do know, though, is there will be a greater sense of urgency, I suspect, now because of the challenge that Trump poses to all Europeans.
And how do you think other countries within the EU are looking at the UK now and figuring out what its position will be? Or are they too busy thinking about their own positions, frankly, to worry too much about that?
Well, I think you're right. I think we're not a priority for EU member states at the moment because they've got more than enough other problems to be thinking about. But I think insofar as they're thinking about us, they'll be watching carefully to see how we react to a President Trump. They'll be seeing if we try and negotiate special deals for ourselves when it comes to things like tariffs. They'll be looking to see about if there is negotiations with the US on standards, and they will be calibrating how to deal with us partly as a function of what we do with regard to the US.
Anand, good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Professor Anand Menon there from King's College London, also Director of the think tank UK in Changing Europe.